Good afternoon. What an amazing crowd. This is a special day for all of us. Thank you all for being here. I see some people waving in the back. My name is Ghassan Cridley. I have the honor and pleasure of serving as Dean of the College of Engineering and Computer Science, following the footsteps of course, Dean Tony England, who really had a tremendous impact on my career, my personal career, but also on the education at the University of Michigan-Dearborn. We are here today, of course, to welcome the Tony and the naming of the engineering lab building. This beautiful building is my home, and I am thrilled that it will carry Tony England's name. Like so many people, I am fascinated by space. As a kid, I grew up on a farm, and space was something that I was fascinated with. As a teenager, of course, many of us my age, I'm dating myself, watched the movie E.T. And so when I came, people talk about exploring exotic places. For me, growing on a farm in Jordan, an exotic place was Miami, Florida. So going to Florida and going to Kennedy Space Center was an eye-opening experience. So thinking about the world that we live in and all the conflicts that the world is experiencing, space is a leveling force. I think we sensed that last week when so many of us stood outside with our glasses to watch the eclipse. And that we as human beings are here for a very short time. So it is critical to do our best to make the world a better place. I see that every day with our students here at UM-Dearborn and at the College of Engineering and Computer Science and with our faculty and staff. And I saw that when Tony was our dean. This building is Tony's legacy. He devoted 8 years strengthening our engineering and computer science programs. He committed to physical improvements, and this is the hallmark of the physical improvements, but other buildings as well. And I encourage you to tour the other facilities that we have. We invested in labs, in classrooms, and worked tirelessly to establish corporate partnerships. And so you can see corporate names on many of the labs around this building. The goal, of course, is to offer a real-world learning experience for our students and to support Michigan's economic needs. Tony never wavered in his belief that a diverse university is a stronger university. And like Tony, all of us at UM-Dearborn are dedicated to the success of our students. I am pleased to now turn the program to one of those remarkable students, Jakob Wittrock. He's an engineering student, junior class engineering students majoring in electrical and computer engineering, and is the president of our honor society, Tau Beta Pi. I would say Jakob is really instrumental in growing our Tau Beta Pi chapter, and I would like to welcome him to the stage.
Good afternoon, CECS and esteemed guests. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our engineering lab building. I'm truly honored to have been chosen to deliver this speech on behalf of my fellow students. Dean Cridley and I have had many conversations about Dean England's vision for our engineering campus. Dean England wanted an environment where students would find inspiration and develop a lifelong passion for engineering. He advocated for a campus that could not only deliver an excellent education, but also where students could find their communities. He advocated for a campus that could I already said that. A campus where students had the academic resources that they needed to succeed. I can confidently say that the engineering lab building lives up to that expectation. I began my undergraduate studies in the fall term of 2021, the first full semester following the completion of the engineering lab building. One of my first impressions of our campus was just how student-centered it was. There are so many wonderful places to work on our coursework. I did a lot of exploring in my first couple of weeks on our campus, but I always found myself returning to the engineering lab building. There's so many ways that I can describe this building, but I think the most fitting is that it's alive. I mean, look at today, for example. There always seems to be something new going on in the engineering lab building. The atrium has hosted game nights, career fairs, conferences, celebrations like today. The list goes on. The best part is that it's entirely, for the most part, student-led. Of course, today is led by our wonderful dean. The ELB provides a perfect environment for student communities to develop. The ELB atrium is the perfect space to meet new people and to find your friends. I find that whenever I decide to study here, someone always stops by to say hello. I'm truly thankful for the network that the Engineering Lab building has helped me grow. I always find myself inspired whenever I enter the Engineering Lab building. I give credit to a number of factors, but I think the most distinct of which is that you can look into the engineering labs and you can see that work is being done. I enjoy watching my peers complete their tasks in lab. Another thing that I enjoy about our campus is the research posters, several of which today will be added to our collection to decorate the building. It really just goes to show how much cool stuff we can do in our fields. My experiences in this building have shaped the goals for the future of my education. I've been inspired to seek research opportunities to contribute to my field, and of course to get a different perspective on learning. I plan to earn my master's degree through our 4+1 program and may even go beyond that with a PhD. On an academic front, the classrooms within the ELB are well equipped to drive student success. Our classrooms allow professors to adapt to a learning style that best suits their students. I have excellent experiences with the labs on campus as well. I've worked as electromagnetic compatibility testing intern. For the rest of the speech, I'll refer to that as EMC. That's a lot of words. Where I had the opportunity to work with several high-end technologies. Drawing connections between the labs that I worked in and the labs that I study in, I can say that the equipment offered by the Engineering Lab building is on par with what I worked with in the industry. I found that I had a much easier time familiarizing myself with the equipment in my position thanks to the experiences in my classes. This enabled me to get more out of my internships and better prepare myself for my forthcoming career in the industry. The Engineering Lab building helps me make those links between theory and practice. I have so many positive memories in this building. I've built my first circuits, written my first programs, made some incredible friends, hosted events through Tau Beta Pi, and of course, my fantastic classes. My sentimental favorite, however, came last time you all saw me up here. As many of you remember, we hosted a celebration of engineering in late February. Engineers Week overall was truly spectacular, but the ending ceremony was truly special to me. The event was made possible by the tireless efforts of the most dedicated students that I have had the pleasure of knowing, and of course, supported by our fantastic facilities. I believe that Engineers Week perfectly embodied Dean England's vision for our campus. In closing, I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunities and experiences that the ELB has provided me and to the students of CECS. It's far more than just a building. It's a center for our community of education and innovation. Here's to the next generation of engineering students that will call the Tony England Engineering Lab building their home.
Thank you again, Jakob, for great remarks and for your leadership as a student in our college. And of course, we can't talk about leadership and not include our great Chancellor, Domenico Grasso. He's completing his 6th year of leading our university, and as Chancellor, he's enthusiastic about the students' experience. He is particularly passionate about making UM-Dearborn the model 21st century commuter university. Sorry, I'm a computer engineering is in my title. The experience we offer here at the College of Engineering and Computer Science helped make that possible. I am grateful for his commitment to honoring Dean England with today's naming ceremony. Please join me in welcoming Chancellor Domenico Grasso to the podium.
Thank you very much, Dean Cridley, and thank you everyone for being here on such a special day at a special university for a special occasion. If Dean Cridley can talk about movies and E.T., then I'd like to date myself a little bit with my youth and the timestamps that defined it. And if you're a fellow boomer, you can go ahead and nod as I go through this as well. First came the Jetsons, and that was about a space-aged family living in a place called Orbit City. And that world was quite radical, with such cutting-edge technologies that seemed impossible at the time. Self-driving cars, smart watches, flat-screen TVs that doubled as phones so you could see the people that you're talking to. Next was the marooned family of Lost in Space, with Will Robinson, the robot. Yes, the robot, very good. And the evil Dr. Smith. I don't know why the PhD was the evil one. None of us will, of course, forget watching Apollo 11 and the moon landing of 1969. And we could all enjoy this while we drank that space-age drink called Tang. And we just had lunch, and in honor of Tony, we served Tang at the luncheon. And I don't know what Tony really thinks of Tang, but everybody at my table, I think, could pass on it. Like many young people of that era, I was enthralled with space exploration, and that fascination continued well into adulthood. I was so enamored with the space program that everything it said about engineering, science, and exploration, that after I earned my doctorate at our sister campus in Ann Arbor, I applied to the astronaut corps. Not once, but twice. Clearly, if I had to apply twice, I was rejected the first time. I was also rejected the second time. Apparently, I didn't have the right stuff. But Tony England did. Over and over again, he demonstrated all the right stuff, the skills, the intelligence, the innovation that was required to be part of America's prestigious space program. And not just the space program, but also with his explorations of the Antarctic and the Arctic with the U.S. Geological Survey. And then there was his final and perhaps his most challenging frontier, higher education. Astronauts can have big egos. That comes with the territory and the confidence required to soar in space. And I hope it doesn't shock anyone here, but academics, professors, can also sometimes have big egos. So an astronaut who becomes an academic dean would make for quite a strong personality, but not Tony. He is the very definition of modesty. After I joined the university in 2018 and took time to meet our deans, for months I did not know about his career as an astronaut, much less anything about his life-saving role in Apollo 13. But that's because Tony England is all about lifting up other people. As dean, he was deeply committed to our students, not just as engineers, but as citizens fully equipped to change our world. He believes passionately, as do I, that engineering problems are human problems. And it is our role as educators to help address those challenges through innovation, research, hands-on experience, and a holistic education. Engineering has always been one of this university's greatest strengths. Tony has deepened that legacy with his leadership. When students and faculty of tomorrow come to the ELB and they say, "Who the heck was Tony England?" we will, of course, say he was a remarkable educator, scientist, engineer, and astronaut. But more importantly, he is a kind and thoughtful person who is clear-minded and well-rounded in his approach to life. He embodies what we want to see in every graduate of our university. His impact as an educator is immeasurable. I am so pleased that his name is now a permanent fixture on our campus as a symbol of the lives he has changed throughout the years. Let's take a moment and learn a little bit more about Tony England.
Tony England is a man who defied expectations and reached for the stars. Raised in West Fargo, North Dakota, Tony's journey began with a dream and a thirst for knowledge. With determination, he earned his stripes at MIT, mastering Earth and planetary sciences. Selected as a scientist astronaut by NASA, Tony made history as the youngest candidate at the time, paving the way for generations to come. From supporting multiple Apollo missions, including Apollo 13 and 16, to shaping federal policies, Tony's impact was felt far beyond the bounds of Earth. From 2012 to 2020, Tony served as Dean at the University of Michigan-Dearborn's College of Engineering and Computer Science. Dean England was beloved on campus, and his transformational leadership culminated in the construction of the new engineering lab building.
When I think of Tony England, the word that comes to mind is innovative. Innovative with his work with NASA, innovation that he used as he came to UM-Dearborn, and thinking about the vision that he set when he got here.
Humble, because I look at his fascinating career and I find that to be amazing, and yet you speak to him and he speaks to you like just any old person off the side of the road that's just striking up a conversation.
When I think about Tony, the word that best describes him is persistence. He would always get his team together and just continue to chip away at the problem or the objective until it was solved.
My connection to Dean England is through the University of Michigan-Dearborn's rocket team, Dearborn. He was the main person that kind of helped us get that started.
He would attend our design reviews and would interact and give us encouragement. He was a huge supporter of the team in that way. And also just as a student who saw his presentations about what he did as an astronaut, that was a huge inspiration for the team.
When I was considering a faculty route after my PhD, I had an opportunity to meet with Dean England. The consistent effort and advocacy he made for female faculty members at the College of Engineering and Computer Science made me believe that this was a place that I could thrive. And so I valued the work he did to make that happen here.
What I see Dean England's legacy at UM-Dearborn is really around the culture that he's leaving behind. And that's one of the hardest things to implement, whether it be in business or in a university, but it's really a positive culture. And when I think about the engineering lab building in the area around us, the work to work with government to ultimately get to the goal to get the funding, and then the construction and the delivery of this building was a huge feat, and we thank you for that.
The experience for all of us at Omron working with Dean England on this lab was an amazing experience. He was very open to other ideas while he had his own very specific thoughts simply on our technology and how we best deploy it for the benefit of the students. The building and the lab, openness, opportunity for all, technology, creating a better environment on the industrial landscape and educational landscape accentuates and validates Tony England and his mark on this lab. Tony, on behalf of all of us at Omron, congratulations on an amazing and fascinating career. Your name on this building is simply as it should be, a great name on a great building at a great university.
We appreciate you and all that you've done for this university and the world. So thank you very much.
Tony, thank you for your mentorship, your leadership, but most importantly, your consistency. You always treated everyone as an equal. And that's the sign of not only a great person, but also a great leader.
Thank you personally for inspiring me to follow my dreams in aerospace and for inspiring so many students on campus to follow their passions. Congratulations and enjoy retirement.
I personally appreciate the work that you've done, and I know that your legacy will continue to live on through the renaming of this building. What a well-earned honor.
My goals have always clustered around the joy of living. I knew by the time I entered college that I found joy and adventures that led to meaningful discovery, and learned later in life that I also found joy in teaching. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give.
not sure I can add much more to what has been already said and what you heard in the video, the testimonials of students, faculty, and friends of the campus and alumni about the impact Tony has left on our college and our university. However, 4 of the individuals who know Tony very well, his colleagues from the Space Shuttle Challenger, has a few words to share, and I'd like to read a note from them. Dear Tony, we are thrilled that the University of Michigan-Dearborn is naming the engineering lab building after you. It is so well-deserved. Your space shuttle crew were extremely fortunate to have you as a crewmate. Your quick action saved the shuttle arm when an out-of-control telescope almost smashed into it. You also dedicated much of your spare time to communicate with young people and students using the new amateur radio system on board. Then, you went on in life to take on the all-important mission of educating and inspiring future generations. We wish we could be there on this momentous day, but rest assured, we are there in spirit. With best wishes, your proud crewmates, Roy Bridges, Story Musgrave, Lauren Acton, and John David Bartow. With that heartfelt message, please join me in welcoming Dean Emeritus Tony England to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And one of the things that I really have appreciated today in Chancellor Grasso's talks and Dean Krigley's talks is the emphasis on students. That was what this building was all about. It was to be a place that students could be proud of their careers, proud of their choice in a career, and share that pride in the workplace. So I hear it in your conversations. I think it has worked out that way. So anyway, I just thank you for the reception you've given me. It's a bit overwhelming, but very much appreciated. I thought I'm not going to talk long, but I would like to say a few words. There was a lot of interest in the brief conversations I had with you today about the space experience. So I think I'll just review that a little bit. I joined NASA right out of graduate school in 1967, and had been just after the Apollo fire, and so things were difficult but optimistic. At the same time, most of the astronauts those times every one of them had a master's degree in engineering, so they knew what they were doing, but they had also been combat pilots, and probably in Vietnam, and even there were some that had date back all the way to Korea. So here I was, a fresh graduate from a university, and there was definitely a sense that we had to earn our right to be there. But they weren't mean about it. They just expected a lot, and they had a right to expect a lot. And for me, it was a really great experience. I didn't really have anything to do with Apollo 11, so rather than stay there and watch everybody else have the fun, I took a vacation, went up to my family's lake cottage in Minnesota, and I could watch the moon over the lake while the crews were up there. And it was a pretty emotional experience. The first mission I had anything to do with was Apollo 13, and the difficulty with Apollo 13. And I was actually coming on as a Capcom, as sort of the least experienced of the astronauts assigned to a crew. The way they assigned crews, incidentally, in Apollo, they assigned 9 astronauts, 3 fly, 3 backups, hoping the ones that were flying would get sick, and then 3 support crewmen who ran all of the errands for everybody, and then served as Capcom while they were up there. And so Apollo 13, of course, I was just coming on as a Capcom. It was late at night. They had just done the mid-course correction on the on the way to the moon. and we got Houston, we have a problem. And one of the difficulties in they went to the landing module, which was designed for 2 people, but now there's 3 people in it. And the life support system wasn't designed for 3 people. So the CO2 levels were building up there. So they wanted somebody to go work on the problem of CO2 scrubbers. And since I had done a lot of work in the scuba system and in the water tank on life support, they sent me off to work with the crew systems people, and we came up with that using the suits, the space suits, oxygen CO2 scrubbers, and with a hose and a sock and duct tape and some other things. We wrote the procedures for all of that and I read them up to the backup crew in the simulator to make sure that they got the thing right, and it did. And so I've forgotten, one of the other crewmen who was Capcom at the time read it up to the crew. And so that was, I get much more credit for that than I really deserve, but it was nice to feel useful. Then on Apollo 16, John Young was the commander on that one, and he was someone, the old astronaut group that I really appreciated. In fact, most all the astronauts consider John the astronaut of astronauts. He's the one that we all look to for how you do this thing. And John and I flew the T-38s, the NASA planes, and for some reason he and I were often going to some place together. And I remember one time we were flying into, I think it was Atlanta, in a bad weather. It's bad, and on the front of the plane, there's this long hose that sticks out a pole. It's the pitot tube, and you get your air data from that, how fast you're going and what the air pressure is, which tells you how high you are. My heater on the pitot tube broke down, and so it all froze up, so I didn't have any air data in the cockpit, flying on John's wing, 2 of us flying along, and so didn't bother John at all. I was somewhat concerned, and we went down through the clouds, and he just said, hang in there, and he just took me perfectly down on the runway, dropped me off, and I landed, and then he went up again, and then came around and landed again. And that kind of, we can do this kind of attitude, it was what I saw in the astronaut office, and I personally, I think, learned a lot from all those folks. On Apollo 16, we didn't have anything like that much trouble, but we very much enjoyed doing the traverses. They had the rover at that time, the Jeep that you could drive around on the moon, and I was able. You can't say the crater on the left and the crater on the right, the third crater down the street. You got to give them the craters names. So you can't give them names of people living, and most of us weren't willing to sacrifice that just to get your name on a crater. And so, but they would take nicknames. So each of us named the craters at the landing site after our wives' nicknames. So my wife's nickname was Spook, the Spook craters on the moon, and John Young's wife's nickname was Stubby, and there's Stubby crater on the moon. So that sort of humanizes some of the adventure. Anyway, it was great fun. The flight was absolutely successful. They did the things, the geology that we briefed them with was all wrong. What they found there was quite different, but their training was good enough that they could recognize that it was different, and we were able to redesign their sampling strategies based on what they were finding at the time. So this is an example. It'd have been very hard to say. I mean, robots do great things, and they do it at a much lower cost and much lower risk. But there's some things that you almost need a person there, and I can't imagine how robots could have recognized that the geology was different and learned a new way to sample. Anyway, that's the story on Apollo 16. my own flight was years later. Actually, I left NASA after Apollo 16 and went to USGS for years to work in Antarctica, and I actually did some airborne geophysics in a different kind of airplane then. But anyway, and then went back to NASA, and John Young called, in fact, and he said, hey, look, we're getting ready to fly the shuttle. Want to come back with us? And gee, I hadn't thought about that, and I'll have to think about it, about 2 seconds, and went back. It took a little longer than the shuttle wasn't quite as ready as we thought it was going to be. But anyway, on the flight, we went out the first time, and the main engine started, but the computer sensed a leak someplace and shut it down. So here we are, and if you remember, the shuttle is sort of tied down in the solids, which are offset from the shuttle itself, which hangs on the side. And so when you put thrust out of that, it rolls. So here you are waving back and forth, and it's feet, it's not inches. And not only that, but we were well aware that one of the components in the main engine is hydrogen, and hydrogen burns. And there had been a hydrogen fire on the pad once before, and it burned up the side of the vehicle. They couldn't even see the flame. So they now had sensors on the gantry that looked in the infrared or something or other so they could see a hydrogen flame. So anyway, we were told, no, there's no flame. So we all went out, and they said it'd be about 2 weeks, so we all went to Disney World. And it was kind of fun because a lot of the people there had come to see the launch. And so we're all standing in line with everybody that's come to see the launch and listening to all the rumors that went on, exactly what happened. Why was our flight postponed like it was? So anyway, then 2 weeks later, we went back and tried it again. This time, we had the honor of being the only shuttle flight that lost an engine on the way to orbit. At 6.5 minutes in the powered flight, that's 8 minutes of powered flight to get to orbit. 6.5 minutes in, we had an indicated overtemp on one of the main engines, and it automatically shut down. We were in the position then that we had what's called 2-engine press, which means with the remaining 2 engine, we can still get to orbit. So it was an abort to orbit rather than an RTLS or downrange abort where you land in Rota, Spain in our case. Okay, a minute later, we had a second engine indicated overtemp. Now, we didn't have single engine press, so we couldn't have made it to orbit if we shut that engine down. And we'd overshot Rota, Spain, and so we would have had, it looked like we were going to have to do a night landing in the Mediterranean, and the shuttle's a pretty lousy boat. So fortunately, there was a lady engineer in the booster concept said, override the shutdown. The sensors, there's 3 sensors, so 2 of those sensors are telling us that we're over temp. But it turns out that all those sensors came from the same batch, and they were all failing at the same time. So, yeah, I know. So that all future missions use sensors out of different batches. But anyway, she told us she thought it was a sensor problem and told us to override the shutdown, and we did so and pressed on to orbit, and we were all kind of happy about that. The alternative, well, I won't go into that. Anyway, it was a great flight. The things that I saw, it's 8 minutes from the West Coast going east before you fly over my hometown in North Dakota. 8 minutes, it sure beats interstate. And it was so much fun. I could see the Cheyenne River. You could see linear things on the ground. You couldn't see cars or anything. And at night, you could see a string of headlights on highways, so you knew where the highways were. And the other thing that really impressed me during the flight was we were in a high inclination orbit, 54 degrees. And so we went very far south. This was the summertime, so the Earth's magnetosheath, the solar wind flows around it and actually comes up the tail of the sheath. And in our summer here, that aurora that causes when it comes to the Earth is over Antarctica. And so we had this green curtain with a red fringe on top 100 kilometers high, and you could see it waving, and it looked alive. And it was just beautiful. Now, we were flying also in the end of August, or in the early August, I mean, and if you remember, there's a Perseid meteor showers going on at that time. So as you're watching the aurora over Antarctica, every once in a while, you would see a shooting star below you. So anyway, it just made for a set of memories that you never forget. So anyway, with that, I'll abandon the podium here. But I thank everybody for coming. I thank all the students for appreciating this facility as much as I do. They did a great. Incidentally, I want to say about the people talk as if, they're underestimating how much others, faculty and students, how much influence people played in the design of this building. We had committee after committee working on, you need this kind of space, you need this kind of big labs, you need these kinds of atriums, you need make sure those lights are up there. The first design the engineers gave us, they dropped that ceiling down and we lost all the light in here. And we said, no, you got to put that back up. And so this was not a solo act. This was an act of faculty, students, and everybody available at the time. And a very good engineering organization, Granger, was the ones at the time. Anyway, thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the visit as much as I have.
Again, thank you, Tony, for sharing the great stories. Every time I hear from Tony, I learn something new about his experience, and it can't be any more fascinating. With this, we have a special presentation for you, recognizing this special day from the United States Congress and the State of Michigan House of Representatives. Would Representative Alabaz Farhat and Brian McMillan, a Regional Director of Senator Peters' office, please join me and Tony on the podium.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Excited to be here. Senator Peters wishes that he could be here today. Unfortunately, he's stuck in D.C. working on some really important legislation for the nation. But I'm honored to be here to celebrate this exciting moment for the university, Dean England and his family. So on behalf of Senator Peters, I wanted to thank you for your service to our nation, the scientific field, the university, and all the students and colleagues you've impacted over the years. What a great honor it is to have a lab named after you. It's a testament to your life and your work. And besides it being very cool to have a building named after you, which it is very, very cool, I think the only thing cooler than having a building named after you is having a crater named after your nickname from your husband. So that's an awesome story. But I also hope, having your name on this building is going to inspire a lot of future engineering students that walk through the doors. And, on behalf of Senator Peters, I wanted to present to you this special senatorial recognition certificate.
I graduated from this university not too long ago, about 4 years ago. And walking on this campus, there was one thing that was always special. And that for as big as that is, and as large of a network that there is here, you could build really personal relationships with your professors and faculty. You could just get to know them at a personal level. You can get to know them, what they care about, what made them want to do what they did, in a way that you can't feel at any other university. I challenge any other university, actually, to show me that. They'll fall short. And, hearing the story and being able to walk in a building like this, is able to inspire feelings that mere words cannot. And so I want to tell you, your legacy in the state of Michigan, your legacy on the students here and in the city of Dearborn. I want to be clear, the city of Dearborn will now be known for two things. We'll be known being the home of Henry Ford and the home to the England Engineering Building. And so from the bottom of my heart, in serving this city and serving this district, and also with recognition from our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, our lieutenant governor, Garland Gilchrist, our state senator, Sylvia Santana, we want to recognize the work you've done. And we know, one thing I know about engineers, they never clock out. They never clock out. And so the work still to be done that we know you're going to be doing. And we appreciate everything. Thank you. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Representative Farhat and Brian. Now, to close out the ceremony, we are excited to unveil the official signage that will welcome students, faculty, and staff, alumni, and guests into the Tony England Engineering Lab building. Chancellor Grasso, would you join me on the stage, please? And Dean England as well. Would like you back here. Yeah. Okay, I now invite everyone to direct your attention to your right, my left, to the draping on the bridge walkway. And please join me in an official countdown. Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! So welcome, everybody. Now it's official. Welcome to the Tony England Engineering Lab building. Thank you all for being here today. It's great to see so many faces, friends of the college, students, faculty, staff. We all want to invite you all to a reception now and enjoy the displays. We have our graduating seniors showing their work for the year. And so I invite everybody to the reception as well as to experiencing the student presentations. I actually want to say something that I don't think we have in the program. Tony was generous enough to share some of his own artifacts from his experience with us that will be on permanent display in this building. And please get to enjoy it. It's right here.